Right, so I was just pondering to myself which statuses and which archetypes in general get big wins with season 2. And so starting off, let's look at the bleed teams, right? So bleed, generally we actually have quite a lot of count appliers nowadays. With KK Wakashu's uptype 4, uptype 4 is not so important. Uptype 3 was already sufficient to apply a significant amount of bleed count. So pretty much Wakashu was the bleed count applier for a long period of time. And then the release of Rhino pretty much made him a secondary bleed count applier, because pretty much a lot of his moves here do apply bleed. I think mainly his skill 2 and skill 3, and if you were to get him to maximum charge count, which is not too difficult with this character, you will be able to get a crap ton of bleed count application. So right now, right, we do have quite a few bleed count appliers. We got KK Wakashu, we got Rhino, and we got Hook Office, who was just recently released, and he actually applies both. He applies a little bit of potency as well as a significant amount of bleed count, because all he needs to do is be faster than the target, and then his skill 2 will apply up to 4 bleed count onto the target, which is very, very good. So generally, in terms of bleed count, we have a very, very good set of core characters here who can apply a bunch of that bleed count, so much so that the boss will most likely not be able to consume all of it, depending on the number of moves that the boss uses. If they use like a bunch of 5 coin moves, well, then your bleed count was never living in the first place. You would need a crap ton of bleed count for that. But if they just use a bunch of single hit moves, like maybe Teleport Wolf, then you're pretty much good to go. So because of that, right, what I think that bleed count is lacking nowadays is maybe a potency applier, because there's not really a big character here that will apply a crap ton of bleed potency, so you're not able to do a crap ton of damage. Maybe you can look at KK Wakashu, right? But for KK Wakashu Honglu, you pretty much have to fight between the Hook Office Fixer Honglu, and this character here actually doesn't go well with the bleed count appliers, because I believe he actually checks based on bleed count and then he applies more bleed potency. That's how he's able to use that reuse coin on the skill 2. So pretty much you would need to do his potency application earlier, so that you'll be able to apply a bunch of bleed potency, and then you can apply all of the bleed count to make that potency last longer. But because of that, you're also kind of fighting with Oklu, who does a little bit of both anyway. So it's really up to you which one you want to use. The issue I think now is that bleed, really we only have like what, 4 units, and 2 of them are the same person, same is Honglu. So because of that, right, I think what we need for bleed is pretty much 1 or 2 characters to apply a crap ton of potency, and we will be able to see a lot of bleach synergies going well, to going crazy. Basically something like Rupture, because now Rupture has a Rich Shit Sinclair, right? Rich Shit Sinclair is able to alone be enough potency. As long as you're fighting a boss or a big tick single target character, you'll be able to get a crap ton of potency as long as you just keep punching the guy. So maybe someone like him for bleed would be a very, very strong addition. Maybe like you apply a wound on the target and then you just keep hitting, and then each time you hit the guy the wound bleeds and then adds more bleed potency. Some shit like that would already be enough to make bleed into a demon. The only other issue I think I have with bleed is that there currently isn't really any egos that really support bleed as well, because a lot of the other IDs, right, they have some ego that makes them really, really good. So for example, Rhyme Shank for the Sinking Gang, and then we of course have like some of these I can't remember what are the Tremor related ones for these, but I'm pretty sure Tremor is pretty much all of these. But then for Rupture, we do have the Dimension Shredder Gang. So pretty much there are some egos that make some of these statuses really, really good. Before bleed, we really don't have any that are particularly bleed oriented. Don't apply like a crap ton of bleed count, don't synergize with bleed or make you do more bleed. So pretty much bleed is kind of lacking a little bit in terms of ego support as well. So yeah, bleed in general just kind of alright now. We got a lot of bleed count apply, but we need quite a bit more bleed potency apply to make it into a very strong status, which we might see in season 3 hopefully. Maybe we'll see a lot of slashy enemies, and maybe, I don't know, because you're pirates you'll be applying bleed or something, I don't really know. But according to the Gregor one, it looks like he's applying burn, so maybe burn will see something, because burn kind of got absolutely ignored in season 2. Right. So next, let's look at the charge count. Charge count pretty much, as long as you do Unga on your skill tree, you will always be a meta character. So charge count characters, we don't really care about your charge count stuff. What we care about is you getting enough charge so you can start using your skill trees and whether your skill 2s are very, very powerful or not. And with the addition of freaking Regret Ego, all of the assault charge related characters are now very, very strong DPSs by themselves. I'm pretty sure WCOM Assault almost reaches Rip Space levels of damage on his skill tree with one use of the Regret Ego. So you can pretty much treat that like his Telepodon. You do need to use it, and then you'll be able to start doing some Unga Bunga damage on his coins. Same for Rhino here, making him from a tank into a DPS. So in general, W Corp, just you slap all of them in. You don't even need to care too much about charge because you have Telepole, and then you have Regret Ego, and then you have some really hard hitting coins as well. Pretty much that is the main reason why the supports aren't super necessary. Even Honglu, even though he provides some pretty decent supporting, it's not even necessary in the team, because if you go into Mirror Dungeon, you go into Refraction Railway, you can actually take statuses that give you charge count. So you do not really need your Honglu to be a support. Maybe in content like maybe story mode where you cannot get anything that gives you more charge count, then he'll be a little bit better, but even then you do have Telepodon just giving the whole team charge count every time you get NV res. So it's also not too hard to get that, because the W Corp gang and the R gang are pretty much a lot of Gloom, sorry not Gloom, NV related moves. Yeah, so it's just generally stupid to have all these charge count characters do so much damage, and the requirement is just get a little bit of charge count, and even then the skill 2s already do crap tons of damage, so it doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, so charge count always winning no matter what characters come out, because their team comp is pretty much Unga Bunga, Unga Bunga, Unga Bunga. Right. Sinking though, Sinking did get incredible support, because our capstone unit in the end was Spice Bush, and Spice Bush is a very powerful finisher for the Sinking gang with the release of Deluge. Right. So in terms of count application, right, we did get two big supports here. We got Ishmael and we did get Rodion, and Rodion pretty much alone is enough to do all of that by herself, because she has Ramshang Ego. If you corrupt Ramshang, you apply 8 counts of the Sinking, and then you apply 10 potency of the Sinking. And then besides that, her skill 3 also applies Sinking count, and then her skill 2 also applies Sinking potency as well. So in general, just one of the best characters in the game. Unga Bunga, tanky, aggro generation, synergizes with Ramshank and applies a bunch of Sinking, making her into the Sinking character, because she herself just, like, she's a great character with Sinking slapped on, and that just makes her better than normal. And then if you look at Ishmael, she pretty much is a versatile support who can support Tremor teams as well as Sinking teams alike. Doesn't really matter which ones you go for. So she's just a very versatile support, and she of course has fragility on her skill tree, as long as you are able to build up that Tremor count on herself. So in general, just a very, very good character, can be used into any team comp. And then Spice Bush Isang, you can also treat him like Dichi in that he's a good character, because he also has Sunshower Ego, and the Sunshower Ego plus this character is just stupid, and he also has AoE on his move, and AoE on your move pretty much makes you a crazy good unit, because you are able to hit 2 targets, you get double the damage. But for this character here, he also has a passive that buffs his AoE damage, and he also has the skill tree which applies Sinking Deluge. So overall, this character is just good character plus Sinking, and that makes him into a very, very good character. So in general, if you just run the Sinking gang here, just these 3, you pretty much have good damage just because these units are good, and then you also have good Sinking because these characters apply good Sinking and have Sinking Deluge as their skill tree, allowing you to do a crap ton of Sinking damage as well to the target. So Sinking did get huge Ws here. In addition, you have to remember that the uptie 4 for Rodion is actually a very, very big boost to that ego. It actually makes that ego from pretty mid into a top tier ego, because if you looked at the uptie tree back then, right, when I was theory crafting with some friends, we were like, wow, it's just 3 Sinking count and plus 6 Sinking count, and then you need to have 5 Sinking potency. Back then there was no Sinking potency except for maybe like freaking what's his name, Mariachi Sinclair. That was like our only Sinking potency applier. And then with the release of Season 2, we were able to get a lot more Sinking related stuff and uptie 4, which made this into such a good move. Like, look at that. From 3 Sinking count and 6 Sinking count to 5 and 8, and then potency application of 5 and 10. This is 80 sinking in total, and if you deluge this, that's a lot of damage. And if you hit someone with 5 sinking potency, you inflict the 1 bind attack and attack down. So just such a big uplift to that ego, and such a good ID that they released to go with that ego, and it charges that ego really, really well as well. Because all you need to do is occasionally just pop that skill 1 to get some gloom energy, and then pretty much you are good to go, because this ego is mainly gloom and then envy, and her skill 2 I think is envy. Yeah, so just such a good buff to sinking in general. And then Tremor, upcoming Tremor, is just literally P Moon's favorite for season 2. They were like, Tremor is so mediocre, let's make it great. And then they made it pretty good. I don't think it's great, like super duper big damage great. I think it's just a very solid status now, especially with the release of freaking Faust, who, if you just run her by herself, is not super strong, but if you fight a boss who is weak to Wrath and AoE and Blunt or something like that, pretty much this character here is just ridiculous because of her ridiculous AoE output. Pretty much if you add AoE to any character, they become super busted, so Faust just becomes a very, very powerful character. And then because her existence is enough to make Tremor into do more damage, because every time you burst Tremor, you apply 2 defense level down, which means that if you can get up to 6 defense level down, you are able to get up to, I think that's the 6 defense level down is about 2 fragility, so that is already 20% more damage. So that is already really, really good for Faust. So yeah, your existence already allows your entire team, your Tremor team, to do more damage to the target, which is already really solid. And then we have some good DPSs who got released, who scale off of staggering as well as bursting. Mola Office Otis is a discard character, so the skill 1 you can pretty much ignore. And then if you are able to get enough Tremor count onto herself, you get more coin power. And you also burst, I think, around 3 times. And each time you burst, you are able to do extra damage to the target based on, I think, up to 20 damage. And it's based on how much Tremor potency you bursted. So just very, very good synergy overall. And then Rose Banner Rodion is pretty much whenever you burst, you increase the stagger threshold that you burst by. And then you also get blunt damage up, which gives you even more damage on your skill 3. So in general, just some pretty solid DPSs here. Of course, the weakness of Tremor is still characters that have no stagger threshold. Even though Faust is here, getting 2 fragility just by existing is really nice, but it's still not really enough to make the Tremor characters into some really ridiculous hard-hitting characters. You will need to get you need to get an enemy that pretty much is able to be staggered in order to get the full value out of this team. So ultimately, Tremor still needs to find the right enemies to fight to make them good. Otherwise, they're not going to be very, very good. They'll just be pretty solid. Yeah. So Faust, your existence is really, really good for the entire Tremor gang in general. And I'm really glad that she was released to make Tremor finalized into a really, really good status. And then Rupture got a lot of good stuff here. I think W Corp Yisang is not here, right? So I can't really put him up here. But with the release of W Corp Yisang, pretty much Rupture has found its core of Rupture count appliers in the form of K Corp Honglu as well as W Corp Yisang, who apply a bunch of Rupture count and are able to keep themselves more or less Rupture count positive. That's the main thing that Rupture always needed, is that they needed more Rupture count application, because they have the best potency applier in the game, Red Sheet Sinclair. Pretty much if you apply 5 talismans on the target, you have infinite potency application as long as you keep hitting. Then what matters now is that you need to maintain that stack, so you need to apply a bunch of Rupture count. And then even without your Red Sheet Sinclair, you now have 7 Heathcliff. 7 Heathcliff is able to apply a bunch of Rupture potency. And of course you have Sloshing, who can also apply a bunch of potency by losing. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting method, because if you lose, right, you don't actually consume any of the Rupture. So in terms of potency application, you can also consider Sloshing there, but also not really necessary because you have freaking Honglu, right? So yeah, in general, Rupture did get a crap ton of support, and we even have some Rupture scaling characters. I think G. Gregor, right? The intention was to make him scale with Rupture as well. The problem with that, right, is that he consumes and doesn't replace any of the Rupture count he applies, which makes him into a very tricky character to synergize with Rupture teams. So he's kind of fallen off most of the time. And you, of course, have someone like Zwei Gregor here who is probably a little bit better than him. So yeah, Rupture, you got a really good core of Rupture count appliers now, and you've always had really good Rupture potency application, and that was really what was needed in order to make Rupture into a very good status. And now you have all of those, you are able to run Rupture teams, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to clear pretty fast. You get some hilarious numbers on your Rupture. Pretty much your no damage Heathcliff here. If you one-side an enemy, you might be able to do like up to 100 damage if you had enough Rupture count applied onto the target. So yeah, Rupture, just generally very, very good stuff. So very, very good. I'm really happy that Rupture got such a good support. I'm really happy that Tremor got such a good support. Sinking also got some good support. All of these statuses here were really mid back in Season 1, and then Season 2 came out, and then they were all really, really solid. Right, so the next one is an interesting archetype. It is about speed, and Don Quixote is the first character we have that really, really wants to go fast. Because if you go fast, you get more shit done. Pretty much Dimension Shredder Yi Sang also wants you to go fast, but doesn't really scale off of the speed, right? It's just if you're faster than the enemy, you apply more, I think, bind on the enemy or something like that. So it doesn't really matter too much. But for Dawn, it's interesting because she just wants to go fast and she wants to do more damage. Pretty much like Gebura from Library of Ruina. Back in Library of Ruina, Gebura was the go fast, do more damage, hit harder character. And that was all you really wanted to do. And Dawn is pretty much going to be our first of that archetype. She wants to go fast, she wants to get a whole team of Pride Resonance characters, and if all of them go fast with her, she will do more damage as well. So she's a very simple character. She just wants a whole team to go fast, and she needs some Pride Resonance, and then after that, the rest of the kit is very self-explanatory. All you want to do is clash with enemies, go fast, apply your Compelled Duel, and then you can just go and Unga Bunga anyone you want. So just a very, very simple character, very, very solid character, and in the future, I hope to see even more support for the speedy team comps. In the form of maybe something like more clash power when you are fast, or maybe you are able to duel multiple enemies or some shit like that, basically. Probably doesn't fit the team though if you were to add more compelled duels, because you're more of a duelist clan. Maybe just a Dawn applies the compelled duel, then everyone else just hits the duel target and then they get a bonus, something like that. I just want to see some interesting synergies with this Dawn, because she is very, very solid. Of course, it's not W Dawn level of Unga Bunga, but she is very Unga by herself, because if you just win raid with her, you're pretty much good to go. But I want to see some synergies with her. Crow's Eye View is pretty much the only main one I can think of, because applying haste to your entire team is a really, really strong ego for this character. Just needs more characters that scale with speed, in my opinion, to make her into a very, very interesting archetype. And then with the release of Zwei Gregor, we also got the defense level archetype, in that you want to stack defense level onto this character, and then you get even more value out of him, because you'll be able to become tankier, because every 3 defense level is pretty much 1 protection, and then you also get some scaling on him because he does more coin power, more damage whenever he has more of that defense level up. So just generally very, very interesting archetype. I did not expect them to do anything like this. I thought you might be a protection character, but it just went to defense level instead. Maybe because it's better to do something like this rather than give fragility and protection. Especially, maybe they've learned from Rabbit Heathcliff. Adding 4 fragility onto him was a pretty big mistake, honestly. It's very hard to make a Heathcliff that's better than that. So maybe that's why they're only using like defense level and offense level and other shit like that in order to make yourself do more damage. Right, so this archetype here, I'm hoping to see even more support for it, and I can't wait to see if there's going to be something like a 5 defense level ID team comp. Poise, well, this is a bit of a stretch, right? Because this character is Poise, but she's more of a tank, so it's not really very interesting. And Poise did get some decent buffs with Optai 4, making them not absolute garbage, but they're still not as great as the other statuses. I really don't know how they're going to make Poise into a very good a good archetype. I think they did release one of the Ego Gifts, right? That was a pretty hard one to get. I think it's a super rare one. You are able to do more crit damage as long as you crit. And I think something like that for the entire Poise gang might be able to push that team comp or archetype into the next level. Maybe an ID, something like Faust, right? Where as long as your characters crit, you do more crit damage. Or maybe when your characters crit, you apply fragility. Like, that's super extreme, but hey, with how wonky the Poise team is now, they really do need something to help push their archetype a little bit more. So they are going to need something, because otherwise, right, the Poise characters in general are just like, if I see Poise, they're just not that great. Unless it's like She Ishmael, who has good coins in addition to Poise, or Elcock Faust, who has a good skill 2 and 3, as long as you have, like, they have good decent coinage, and skill 3 is a crazy good coinage, and then they have Poise slapped on. That's why they're good. So because of that, right, yeah, Poise is kind of mid right now, and I hope to see a little bit more support for it. I can't really think of any other ideas. Apply fragility, boost damage, make it more consistent to get Poise. I think they did do that with Datai 4. A lot of them are more consistent in getting their Poise now. The issue is that the Poise doesn't really increase their damage, because in the first place their damage was not very high. Poise is only good right now if you slap on Poise into a high damage character. For example, Ninclair with crit sounds insane. And if you actually go into Mirror Dungeon and you take the one that gives you +4 Poise and +4 potency to all characters, you will see him do some insane numbers, because he crits on the 30 coin, which is insane. So if something like that were to actually happen to the Poise gang here, then we would be able to see a resurgence in Poise. Otherwise, it would just be a very mediocre status overall. And in Season 2, we really didn't get much support for it in general, so not very interesting at all to look at Poise characters. Burn also kind of got shafted in a way. Technically, Season 1 did release a lot of Burn Egos, right? We got 4th Match Flames, all of them, and then we got 4th Match Flame Ryoshu, who is a really, really good one. But Season 2, we really only got LCC, we got Liu Ishmael. And Liu Ishmael, while she does scale on Burn, which is the correct direction, I think, because Burn is a status that stays for a very long period of time, and all you need is like 1 or 2 counts in order to maintain it. It's still not good enough, in my opinion. Mainly just because there's not enough like other good damaging burn synergizing IDs. Pretty much we only have a 2-star Muscle, 2-star Honglu, and 2-star Liu Gregor. And because of that, with Ishmael, we pretty much only have one more Liu related ID. So Liu, we have pretty much about 4, and overall that is not enough to make Burn into any viable strat. Burn, technically you can get some pretty high potency, because the burn count, right, takes forever, but at the same time, since it triggers once per turn, it's very slow. So even if you do 99 damage per turn, it's still pretty slow compared to something like Bleed that can trigger multiple times, or Rupture, which is on every hit. So because of that, it's a bit wonky. And because of that, we do need something like Yisang here, who can pop Sinking, for example. Sinking is a bit different, because Sinking is pretty much like Rupture. You hit, you apply you consume the Sinking. So not too important to have Sinking Deluge on Sinking teams, although it is a very good burst. It's just that for Ishmael, right, because Burn stays forever and it stacks up to 99 most of the time if you just keep punching them. I see this pretty often in my Mirror Dungeon, so stacking the 99 is really no problem. What you need, right, is something to burst the Burn so that you do a bunch of damage, because you will have a crap ton of Burn on the target, and the Burn count ticks so slowly because it's every turn that you just keep burning the guy for 99 every round. And with how thick the bosses are nowadays, right, it's actually not too bad of an idea, you know, to just burst that burn. Maybe do like, what? Maybe you burst the burn, you do like maybe 10 times 90, you do 900 damage to the target, the boss is still alive. Like, it's still fine. Like, it's not bad to add the burn burst, in my opinion. Besides burn burst, I don't know, you can add more synergizing IDs and add even crazier coins in order to make burn into a viable status, as well as have some good IDs that synergize well with it. Kind of like how Rupture, because they released 2 of these 3-star IDs here, and they synergize well with the Rupture. they are able to keep going. Same thing here. Just two Unga Bunga sinking related characters that apply a bunch of sinking naturally. Just really, really good shit. If we get some IDs like these guys up here, then I think Burn can also prosper in Season 3. And then lastly, we have the Selfish archetype. The Selfish archetype pretty much just wants to build for himself. He doesn't really support the team in any real way and just wants to control himself in order to do crazy amounts of damage. The issue is that this was slapped onto a Heathcliff, and Heathcliff has Rabbit. And Rabbit is technically selfish, but it doesn't matter because Quick Suppression applies 4 fragility, and that makes him one of the best supports in the game as well. Because 40% extra damage is just stupid. So Sunshower Heathcliff, even though he did get one of the, in my opinion, this ego is actually really good. He got a really good ego. It's just not enough to push him all the way up. Let's look at Heathcliff ego. Let's look at Yasunyata. This is the one that pretty much wants to be run with him, because if you can get to that negative 15, you'll be able to get additional 2 attack weight, so you get a 5 AoE that does 33 damage to all targets, and then you can inflict, well, this part is kind of the downside, but this is the upside. You gain more defense level for yourself, you gain 1 damage up next turn, you heal 4 SP on yourself, and then you inflict 1 fragility, and then whenever you go to stagger, you just heal yourself. And for a selfish guy like Sunshower, this is pretty much the perfect one to go with him, because he ideally wants to be at minus 15 or lower, and in the occasions that he is plus 15, he is also able to use this as a support ego. And is able to do like 26 in a 5 AoE. That's pretty respectable. So overall, this guy did get some good stuff, but I don't think it's enough, because Rabbit still exists, and Rabbit is pretty much the king of Heathcliffs. And unfortunately, I think that P-Moon is realizing that with the release of Rabbit, right, it's really very hard to power creep this guy, because 4 fragility is just too insane, and 2 coin power on a 5 coin move on your skill tree is also very insane. And it's pretty much the reason why they really haven't released another character that has not really a lot of downsides on using their skill tree. For example, if you use Dawn skill tree, you lose HP, right? You use Ryoshu skill tree, you lose HP as well. For Rabbit, he loses nothing. He just loses coin power if he doesn't have the speed. And then pretty much you always apply the fragility anyway. So it doesn't really matter if you are just trying to support with your Rabbit. Although you do lose a lot of damage, but yeah, if you get the fragility. So if you have like a bunch of skill trees coming out, you just do a crap ton of damage anyway. So in general, this character here is just too busted. Since Season 1, this character has been busted, and Season 2 will remain as king of the Heathcliffs, in my opinion. I don't think any of the Heathcliffs released in Season 2 were able to match up to this one. And this Selfish archetype here, even though he does do some pretty solid damage, I have talked about this in depth. I really wanted this character to become a really good character, but it's just too hard to bring him when you compare him to Rabbit. Everywhere I go, I see his face. Rabbit, 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 Rabbit. Quick suppression, quick suppression, quick suppression. Just non-stop. Yeah, it's a very cool design. It's just that, man, like, hard. It's pretty tricky to get that SP to always be around minus 15. Very hard to control in terms of SP management. And then furthermore, he also will get hit a lot, and his damage output is not even going to match Rabbit in any way. Even though it is pretty damn good, because 18 on all of these pretty much adds up to 50 something on the skill tree, which is already very solid. It's just that Rabbit exists, and it's just really hard to justify this guy. So ultimately, even at the end of Season 2, this Selfish guy here pretty much got an ego created for him, and in my opinion, he's still worse than Rabbit. So yeah, it's just a bit too hard to compare. And the fact that he's selfish, right, means that he cannot really belong to any team comp. If you notice, right, he doesn't really do anything specific. He does everything, actually. He does Rupture, he consumes his own sinking to deal damage, he bursts Tremor here, he inflicts paralysis, more Rupture potency, and then inflicts fragility next turn on a tail hit for this skill over here. And then all he wants to do is gain sinking and inflict some sinking every now and then. But since he has a bunch of coins, he'll probably consume all that sinking, and he'll probably consume all of that Rupture immediately after he applies. So he cannot go in with a Rupture team because he consumes too much Rupture. He cannot go in the sinking team because he consumes too much sinking, although that's not really too much of a problem for sinking. And then here, I guess he can burst Tremor, but this requires a tail hit as well, so it's a bit wonky. So yeah, this guy is really just the epitome of selfishness.
and he will probably go into the next season pretty much left alone. And I don't think there's much that they can do to make him into a very, very good unit unless they add Uptide 5 to his ID and then they make him do some, or then they make him have like some better SP management. So you'll be able to more consistently get the value that you need. So that you'll be able to do 40 damage here as well as your 50 something on your skill tree here. Yep, so Sun Shower, very cool design. I just think that even with all of the changes that they've done to try to make him into a viable unit, it's just not enough. Especially since they released such a beast of a rabbit over here. Yeah. So overall, this entire season, right? Tremor, huge buffs. Huge support to try to make him into a good status, and they succeeded in my opinion. It is now a good status. It's not something that you would use to try and break any records or anything like that, but if you want to go and have fun against a boss that has stagger threshold, I think it is a very viable one, because now you have your DPSs and you have your supports, and with all of this in addition to like what all of the other egos that are coming out as well, you pretty much have a very solid team comp here. And pretty much you don't really need too many egos when I think about it, because most of the kits, right, are pretty much just stuck into the ID themselves. There's not really an ego that really synergizes too much with Tremor. So if they add egos in the future that support Tremor teams, then this team will just keep getting better and better. So overall, just very solid IDs to the Tremor comp. Just need to add some egos here to add even more viability to them. So yeah, just good. I really like it. If you want to have fun, you can feel free to run them. And then overall over here, if you look at the others, like Rupture with the addition of W Corp Yisang, which is not here by the way, so have to not place him here. Just overall, just super good stuff. W Corp Yisang, very strong, able to just single-handedly apply a bunch of Rupture count by himself and replace it and then consume it. So just really good. And then we also have Dimension Shredder Honglu, really good. And then we have Sinclair as well, really good. So Rupture got some huge supports. Unfortunately, a lot of the other Rupture scalers do not help support this team comp because they don't apply enough Rupture count. So those will not be used in this team comp. Only those characters that help to boost the Rupture potency without really consuming too much will be able to be run in this team comp. But generally very good support for Season 2. And then for sinking, we did see some very good support as well. Dichi, Unga Bunga unit, Spice Bush, Unga Bunga unit, and have some sinking stack onto them as well as one of the most versatile supports. Can be slapped into Tremor, can be slapped into sinking. Both works Ishmael. Very good addition in general. So these three statuses, in my opinion, are the big winners here. W Corp, just because this one ID is super busted, that is why they are winning. And then for Bleed, they have new Bleed count appliers, so it's just really good overall for Bleed. All they need now is potency application, and they should be a full-fledged status that would be very fun to run in Mirror Dungeon, or really fun to run in Railway with some Bleed application bonuses. And then we have the fast archetype that needs more support. We have the defense level up that needs more support. And then Poise, I don't know how they're gonna fix Poise. Burn, they need to add more shit to support Burn. And then the selfish guy, I think he's just gonna be selfish all the way until the end. So that's pretty much what I think about all these statuses. Feel free to let me know if you think about anything else here. But in general, I think that our big three focuses here for Season 2 were definitely Tremor, and then Rupture, and then Sinking, to make them into actual interesting statuses that will be fun to run if you feel like it in the Mirror Dungeon. So that is it for this. I'm just going to end this video here. Nothing much else to talk about. Feel free to leave a comment if you have anything else to say. And in general, remember that this list just doesn't matter too much, because if you go into Railway content, right, you can screw all the statuses except maybe Charge, because you just run all of the Unga Bunga characters that do insane amounts of nuke damage, and then you try to high roll as much as possible to cut down your turns. So if you want meta stuff, don't need to look at this. This is pretty much just me pondering about what statuses might be coming next in Season 3, and in my opinion, I think that what will come next might be Poise and might be Burn, in order to make them into more viable statuses, and maybe a little bit of Bleed as well, in order to become more viable as a status. So hopefully I will get what I want. I will be able to see in Season 3 a lot of Burn, a lot of Poise, and a lot of Bleed. Maybe Walpurgis Night will fix some of these, who knows. Alright, so I think that will be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.